That's funny. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I think, you know, again, I'll stick to this notion. I don't necessarily think that if a game in its base game has been released already, it definitely shouldn't be up for, like, Game of the Year. Because while the expansion content, you know, can be phenomenal, it's still just an extension of what the base game is offering. An extension of what the base game has already given people to experience, right? And so, therefore, it's not necessarily a new experience. And so, I think that really Game of the Year should be relegated to those games that have released as a new entry into the industry, not as an expansion or anything for that year. I'm not saying that like expansions and deals, because look, man, like when you brought up a perfect one, Witcher 3, dude, Blood and Wine, Heart of Stone, those are amazing expansion content, right? You could argue spin-offs win awards. Why wouldn't DLC? Well, I'm not saying they can't win awards. That's what I'm getting at. I'm not saying they shouldn't be able to win awards. I'm saying I don't think they should be able to win Game of the Year. Because they're not a new game. They're an extension of a game that has already released in a previous year. So expansions and things like that, yeah, absolutely they should be able to win awards. Because there's phenomenal content out there as expansions and stuff, right? But as far as Game of the Year, I don't agree with that. What spinoff has won Game of the Year? I mean, give me an example, because I can't think of one off the top of my head, and let's talk about it then. Persona, what, and when? What year? Give me some details, dude. I need something to go off here. They've all won Game of the Year. But again, these are also new entries in the series. These aren't These were new iterations in the series too. I'm okay with that. I wouldn't say a spin-off. It's not a spin-off. These were new iterations in the series. That's like Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, Assassin's Creed 1 through 856. You know what I mean? That's different than expansion content. Very much, in my opinion. But that's just me, though. Obviously, I think you feel different about it. That's just my opinion. What's up, Davey? Here's the thing. I'm not saying that maybe the content being brought to the table by some massive expansions is not worthy of consideration for Game of the Year awards. But what I'm getting at is that it's not a standalone game. it's something that's building off of another game that has already released. It wouldn't be anything without Elden Ring that came out in 2022, right? Therefore, how can it win Game of the Year when Elden Ring already came out in 2022? You know? That's what I'm getting at. Game of the Year will be Zenless. It's going to be Game of the Week. And I definitely think that there's, you know, many reasons why they should, you know, DLC should, you know, expansion content should be up for winning plenty of other awards from different outlets and stuff. But as far as like Game of the Year, it's not its own game. It's literally it couldn't stand on its own. It has to be part of a game that already released in previous year. That's not the same thing though. It is a new experience, it is. But it's not a new game. A large part of what that experience has to offer is the core of it is built upon a game that has already released. You know what I'm saying? It's not its own game. It's not its own game. And the name of the award is, you know, Game of the Year. I get it. Usually whenever I look at that personally, I think of Game of the Year being something that, you know what I mean? I think this is where I have an issue. This is where I have an issue, and this is what I keep going back to in my head, and this is why I keep saying this. Game of the Year, right, was already something that Elden Ring was in the running for in 2022. And that was its time to shine. That was the year it came out. And I know a lot of other people probably feel the same way you do, Vault, about, well, why shouldn't it be in consideration for Game of the Year award again when the DLC drops if the DLC is that good? As far as I'm concerned, it's because Elden Ring has already... Whenever Game of the Year awards are supposed to be considering games that dropped that year, right? Games that dropped that year within that time span, from the last award show to, or the last awards given out to whenever they're doing this award show, right? And when you think about it like that, and you're talking about Elden Ring and the fact that it already had its time to be in that. Just because it dropped an expansion, in my opinion, doesn't mean that it should be able to be in the running for Game of the Year again. It had its time to be that. I'm not saying the content's not good enough or whatever, but it literally, that content isn't standalone. It didn't release on its own. It's an extension of what Elden Ring is. That's why I don't consider it to be something that should be in the running for Game of the Year, personally. Obviously, we have contrasting ideas of what this should or shouldn't be. I'll agree to disagree with you, but I respect the, you know, standpoint that you have, you know, where you're coming from. I can see where you're coming from. I just don't agree with it, you know? And again, it's not that I don't think it should be getting a lot of awards. Pinky wouldn't even let... well, no, absolutely not. Well, remasters, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Remakes, I'm kind of with you too. Yeah. So so basically this is what Vault has been doing this morning in this entire situation. Somebody put Vault in Peepo jail, please. Wait, what? What? Vault, what are you doing, dude? Oh my god. Hold on. I got you. I got you, Soup. All right, my bad. Yeah, Pinky, I agree. Cause when you brought that up, I immediately thought of something like Dead Space, right? Because that's a recent remake, and even though I think they did a good. We talk about remakes a lot, and you know, I think what they have to do is definitely. I mean, take even a look at something like, you know, Metal Gear Solid, you know, that's coming out, Snake Eater. We've seen what that game's going to be, and it's going to be an entirely different game over what the original was, right? I still am with you on that. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Vault. Silent Hill 2 remake game of the year. Yo, that's gonna that's gonna be the worst game of the year, dude. That's gonna win an award for worst game of the year right there. Yeah. Yeah, what was Davey saying? Super said fight, debate, I'll get my mocha. Call of Duty game of the year? Bleh. DLC's not a game, DLC of a game. Yeah, agreed, Davey. Yeah, Davey had my back, dude. Yeah, exactly. Davey was with me, dude. That would kind of suck, having a worst flop of the year. Would it? Would it suck? Would it suck, or would it actually call out these companies for... Would it make them more reluctant to pull the bullcrap they've been pulling? I don't know. Like, take for example, I'll give you a perfect example, okay? You guys remember the amount of hype? Nice, Pinky. Yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm gonna get mine going today. You remember the hype behind Lord of the Rings Gollum in development? And then what a disaster it was. And this is one of those tried and true examples of what I talk about all the time, right? I actually think it would be 110 gigs. I knew it was going to be big, dude. Kappa. Yeah. I mean, I know it's almost kind of... It won't ever happen, and it is because it would be super rude. But this is what I'll say. Okay, let me compare this to something. If you remember the award shows last year, right? The award shows last year, like I think it was the DICE Awards. The DICE Awards were straight up calling out companies in the audience, like Embracer. They were throwing javelins at companies in the audience, you know. It was awesome, as opposed to what we saw from like Jeff Keighley, who didn't want to say anything about anybody and you know, run a risk, right? I mean, what we promote here all the time, right, is a healthier industry for all the way around. Better games as far as content, better games as far as performance, everything as a whole, as far as the way the companies approach us as consumers, the way we approach them as fans, everything, right? So I think that there probably needs to be a little bit more on the front of people and companies getting called out for doing terrible stuff. And when you know, the things that I promote all the time and I talk about all the time is like, I take a company like Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers has so many iconic, legendary universes and franchises under their belt. And how many times have we seen them use that to their advantage and just creating mediocre to really subpar content and baiting people into buying those kinds of games when they're not worried about creating fantastic video games? What they do is they use the allure of these universes, you know, that people love to their advantage. Yeah. And then you take something like Lord of the Rings Gollum, which was Daedalic Entertainment. Daedalic Entertainment got Lord of the Rings Gollum, and and don't get me wrong, it's gonna feel bad if somebody gets called out that's part of that development team or anything like that. But really, what they should be doing is calling out the company, not individual people necessarily, but the companies behind what's happening here. Because Lord of the Rings Gollum was an absolute crap show, right? And then we find out after the fact that basically Daedalic took like a really, really low budget and was trying to force their developers to make a AAA styled game in a crunch culture situation. And so do they not deserve to be called out? I think part of the problem in what has, Gollum Game of the Year for reals? My bad. Sorry. How dare I? I think part of the problem is that so many of these companies have gotten away with doing this crap for so long and not getting called out for it. So, I mean, maybe this is the kind of stuff that needs to happen. Maybe they need to be publicly shamed a little bit. Maybe these companies need to know that if they pull shenanigans like this, they'll be publicly shamed for it, for trying to dupe us as consumers and dupe the entire industry. You know what I mean? Be better. It's not that we always expect every single game to be an absolute banger, but when you're talking about things like what happened with Lord of the Rings Gollum, Daedalic deserved to be absolutely ridiculed for it. So maybe there should be a Worst Game of the Year award. And maybe there should be a number of nominees for Worst Game of the Year. I'll tell you one outlet that won't do it for sure, and that's Jeff Keighley's. Because that is all a sham and he has sold out. Something to think about though, if we truly wanted change, we wanted progression in the industry, and we wanted games to be better, and we wanted companies to be better, improve their projects, their project development processes, and make better content on the constant and stuff like that. Things like that would probably keep them in check a little bit.